3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
It's Monday. It's Monday. It really is. 7 o'clock. And that can mean only one thing. It's time for Reading the Signs, where me, Comedy John Ryan, and my comedian pals from all over the world are going to be talking about comedy, well-being, why we do it, how we cope. And that's where we need your help. We need you to send us your top tips for well-being. Be part of the show. Drop a comment in the box on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, on the mensradiostation.com website. It's going to be a great show, much better than last week. What we're trying to do is think exceptional, which, funnily enough, is the motto of WJ, our show sponsors. WJ are the UK's leading road marking and highway maintenance company. They're working with us, we're working with you. Let's get to it. Good evening. Welcome along to another episode of Reading the Signs with me, John Ryan. How's your week been? Do let us know. Oh, let's hide our guest just for a bit. Yeah, it's Monday. It's 7 o'clock. What have you been up to? How's your day been? What have you been doing? Are you well? Are you happy? Is it too cold for you? Is it too wet? Is it too hot? Blah, 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 all the usual stuff. I've had an interesting week. I was in the Caribbean last week, and it was 30 degrees, and I didn't like it. I've mentioned before my aversion to hot weather. I just can't cope with sunshine. I can't cope with high temperatures. It's not for me. And yet other people could be sitting out there in the sunshine having the time of their life. Because the thing is that weather, it's like your well-being. We're all experiencing the same weather, but it's having different effects on all of us. So do bear that in mind as we go through the next hour. Yeah, let us know that you're there. If you're listening on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn, do drop us a comment and give us a little follow in the box. If you're listening on a men's radio station or YouTube, just write us a letter. Drop us a line. There you go. How hard can that be? And if you're listening to our podcast, then thank you guys for coming along. Finally, the guys in the depots up and down the country listening to it, get out on that road and get some gravel down, boys, because it's getting a bit nippy out there. The weather's going to catch up with us. So tonight's guest, I'm really chuffed to have because he's a really funny bloke and I always love working with him because he's full of just a bundle of energy and a bundle of joy. Very positive guy to be around. And when you meet him, it's infectious. He hosts shows, he does songs, he's funny, supports Oldham. What more can he's just got it all, this boy. So with that in mind, please can we have a nice special welcome to Stevie Gray. There you go, mate. It was all right, wasn't it?
That was lovely, yeah. I love the fact that he's funny.
Happened?
He supports Oldham.
What happened? It was daytime a minute ago. Have you got like skylights?
Yeah,
like
that is it. I'm in Derby now. It's just that's what they do after 7 o'clock. It's just pitch black.
Literally 7 o'clock. Poof, it all came down. Brilliant. What have you been up to today?
I have started a new job, as it happens. Wow. So I've got a new day job working in IT.
Okay. What did you do? What did you do in IT?
So I specialize in databases, which usually isn't a hotbed for comedy gold. But the new company, they are in charge of all the bingo halls in the UK, or a large percentage of the bingo halls.
Okay.
And one of the things today was why the table was reasons why people have been banned from our bingo clubs. And that is potentially a hotbed of a comedy gold. Because, I always thought it was slightly older people that went to bingo, but no, people are like fighting.
It's rock and roll, mate. It's bingo to do rock and roll, mate.
I think it might be, reading some of these stories.
Are you allowed to reveal any of the reasons why people are banned from bingo? Is that a closely protected trade secret?
I think some of them are possibly subject. So some of them are actually really quite sad. It's quite tragic. You see, I know this is a mental health show, and I think gambling needs to be brought into this because I used to think I was just looking today at some of the database tables were showing how much people spend per week gambling, and it's astronomical. I mean, in the thousands a week.
Wow.
Don't get me wrong. I knew that some people would have issues, but yeah, some people are really bad. The one thing today, now I smiled at it, but on reflection, maybe it is tragic. There was a lady, and she'd sat by this. The bingo halls, apparently, they don't make the money from the bingo anymore. They make it all from the online. They have all online terminals and slot machines. Now, there was a lady, apparently, she'd been sat there from 10 o'clock in the morning till like 11 o'clock at night. She was just feeding money into this machine.
Wow.
Now, it flagged up a number of things to say she's deposited 1,000, she's deposited 2,000. And what they do, they send people around, to have a chat, make sure they can afford how much they're spending. But then it got to the point where what happened is she'd spent like 3,000 in a day on this machine. And then someone came and sat next to her, and with their first like 20 pence or their first go, won a £10,000 jackpot. And she's just she is physically laid into them and had to be restrained. But when I was reading it to start with, you can almost see it happening, and you think, oh no, I could imagine you'd be absolutely livid.
You'd be a bit upset, wouldn't you?
Yeah,
something like 10% of bingo players develop an addiction.
Really?
Yeah, it's big business, mate. It's because I live in Essex, and young people go to bingo. Students love it. It's a night out. It's very competitive.
Yeah, I can imagine. But they were telling me today that these days you don't even have to mark your card now. You just sit there and you can press automatically mark it. So they say they get a lot of teachers in. The teachers bring the books and they're marking the school books, and the computer marks the card for them.
That's just lazy. That's the what's the what do you do with your dabber?
I thought that's part of the fun, isn't it? You have the big sort of
the dabber. It's called, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's called dabber. My mum used to play on Friday nights at the church. It was a very community-based thing, and it was full of these Irish women and they'd have like 3 lines or 5 lines, and they'd bring the kids along to mark some of the books, and then there'd be 10 of them in like a little consortium. So if one of them won, they'd split the money 10 ways. And,
oh, nice. The original syndicate. I like it.
Proper. Happy days. So just tell us a bit about your background, Stevie. Where was you in the family? You got brothers and sisters?
Yeah, I've got an older brother, Dave, not the singer, but yeah, he's wonderful. 3 years older than me.
Oh, it's nice you said he's wonderful.
Oh, he is. He really is. He works for Wigan Council, and he works with homeless people, and it's his job to try and make sure there's as few homeless people on the streets as possible.
Okay, so the comic in me is going, is he like a serial killer? But I kind of...
But no, it's more of a hero.
That's a thankless job, man. I worked in a homeless person's unit once, and not pleasant at all. Not pleasant.
No.
Especially when people go, oh yeah, just give houses out to everybody, give them PlayStations, and it was in Kensington, so we'd very often get people ring up and go, yeah, I'm homeless. I've got nowhere to stay. I want you to give me something to live. And I'd go, well, are you a single male? Yeah. Well, then we're not legally obliged to give you anywhere, mate. He goes, well, what if I was like a Pakistani? I'd go, well, then I would get someone to speak Urdu to you to tell you the same thing. It was that whole thing. These people have got these misconceptions that all you do is ring up. You get people ring up, and I'd go, yeah, mate, a property's just come available. It's a studio flat, penthouse, and they're just looking at the park. And they go, are you taking Mickey? I'll go, no, you are, mate. You can't get any help. You know it.
Yeah.
Sad time. So as a kid, was you a happy kid?
Yeah, really happy. Always full of beans. I've got a son myself now. He's 3, and he reminds me so much of myself at that age. And I didn't realize how quite annoying being me would have been when I was 3, because he's just non-stop, like bang, 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 bang. And he is brilliant, but it is like a whirlwind coming at you. And it's almost like holding a mirror up to say, look, this is what you've done for years and years.
Now it's payback.
Yeah, it is.
I've always thought that parenting is about you got your worst qualities and your partner's worst qualities, and you stick them into the same human being. It's like super bad. When you was a kid, though, was you academic? Were you bright? Were you like average?
No, I was quite good actually, but I don't know whether or not that's a reflection on the areas where I grew up. So my primary school was Newton Heath, which was North Manchester, and my secondary school was in Oldham, and they were decent enough schools, so I was in the top sets for everything.
Okay.
But then you go to university, and then you speak to the people with the private educations, and then you
Yeah.
realise, oh, I'm quite bright, but maybe I'm not
Yeah.
as
It's
bright as some of these.
It's always funny when kids especially get that moment when they realise, yeah, you're the brightest kid in the class or the fastest runner in the class, but there's other classes in other schools in other areas. I remember once I was on the board of governors at a primary school, and it was sports day, and we had inter-schools sports day, and we went along, and a little kid who was gobby little, he's horrible, Barry, that is his real name. I'm not changing it because he's probably still horrible now. And he was the fastest kid in the school, and he was the fastest kid by a country mile. But he was coming up against kids from other schools, and he came last, and he came considerably last, and cried his eyes out because he'd never lost a race in his life.
Oh, wow.
And he just realised that perhaps he wasn't the greatest runner in the world, and that reality. It's a bit of a shock, mate, isn't it?
Oh, let's find him. Let's find him now. Let's get him on Facebook or LinkedIn and remind him.
No, I've got a better one. One of my best mates, he was brought up. His parents ran a home residential unit for people with Down syndrome, and he used to play football with them. And he thought he was like Pele. He thought he was the greatest footballer on the planet. And then the first time he joined a Saturday team, he was rubbish.
Yeah.
I still give him some stick about that. When he was at school, though, what was your favourite subject?
I think IT was a big one, which I then followed in the footsteps of. But I also really enjoyed history at school. And then at A-level, I did politics, which wasn't an option at GCSE. But at A-level, it was really, really interesting. Half of me wishes I would have continued down that route, but it's a hard job. And you look at the last few years in politics, and you just think, I'm not sure I'd want to be involved in this on either side, because it's
better off out of it. Well, you mean
like
there's two sides? There's two sides now.
If you can believe it, yeah.
Wow. So, what university did you go to?
Leeds. So it's the University of Leeds, which was an amazing university, a really good place to be.
Did you live over there, or did you commute?
No, went over there. So I lived over there for 3 years. So the first year you're in halls, and then you have 2 years where you just live near the centre. But they were just good times. That's where you kind of develop a bit of independence.
Yeah. Isn't it Leeds that's got the longest bar of a student union?
Yeah, it is. Is it the long room in the student union? Yeah.
That's it. I met this couple on a ship once, and they were both in their like early 60s or late 60s. And about 5 or 6 years ago, they saw that there was who's the Joe Lycett, I think it was. They love him. They love him. And they saw he was doing a gig in Leeds. So they got tickets. There's only £6, so they thought happy days. Got the bus up. And when they got there, they realised it was student union. And they were like at least 40 years older than anybody else there. But then all the students thought, it's like grandparents booked them and got drunk.
Oh yeah, snake bite and black I used to have in that bar.
It's like, was there a comedy club or a comedy society at the university?
There was, but this predates me going into comedy. So what I used to do, I remember there was a comedy night at Leeds Met, and it was the WKD tour of new comedians. And I remember going there, and they had a joke writing competition, and I won a free T-shirt.
Wow!
So that was good. But
do you remember who was on the bill?
You know what? I can't. I would love to remember that. But this was back in the day that no matter what you did at night time, you ended up in a nightclub.
Yeah,
so you could do anything. I'm going to the library, and then you'd end up in a nightclub.
Always. When I was at uni, we saw Harry Hill and booed him off.
Did you?
Yeah. I just thought he was just rubbish, absolutely rubbish. And then I came home for the holidays, and about 3 weeks later, I'm at my local comedy club, Hecklers in Leytonstone, and I'm with my mates. And then I saw Harry Hill, and I'm like, oh God, this guy's rubbish. We can't sit through this. And they went, no, come on, let's give him a go. And it was one of the funniest things I'd ever seen in my life. He was hilarious. But what was worse was it was exactly what he'd done that we booed him off at.
That's so frustrating. And this happens. I was trying to explain this to an act the other day. He came off stage and thought his set didn't go as well. And he was a fairly new act. And I had to tell him, you can go out and sometimes it isn't you. It's like quite a lot of the times it might be. It could be the performance. It could be the stage, the lights. It could be where you are on the bill, the day of the week. But some days it's just an uphill task from the start.
I think sometimes it can be as the doorman can upset them on the way in, the bar, the beer's flat, it's too hot.
Yeah.
All those things, man. But as you get more experience, I think you kind of learn to. I always use a football analogy, and as a fan, I know you get this. So, like last week, where I was, I'm thinking, okay, this is Leighton Orient, and we're playing Arsenal away. If we can lose 3-0 here, we've done well. Whereas Saturday, I was like Liverpool playing like Hereford at home. I'm like, this is just easy. It's just easy. I'm actually trying to get this to be the indicator for all comedians around the country. I thought about messaging Gav Webster, who does Saturday.
The results.
The results. Do it in terms of results. How you see your gig going in terms of as a game of football. I think it's genius. I think it's one of my greatest ever ideas.
Well, I'm glad you're playing these good rooms, John. Some of them.
It was a conservative club.
Oh, really? Is that your bread and butter?
Oh, mate, if only. It was a conservative club, and I actually started by going, my name's John Ryan. I will die before I vote Tory. I said, listen, at least we know where we stand.
Yeah.
And then it just went on from there. They were great fun. Great fun.
But that's good. At least you've established yourself right from the outset. Mate,
right at the top. Just right from it. And even afterwards, one of the blokes goes to me, come on, man, you know. You must have a little bit of a soft spot. I'm like, no, never gonna happen, never. And I told him because I worked with Boris Johnson about a dozen times, and found him very entertaining, very engaging, but not really the bloke you want to go into like a war.
No.
I
thought he'd peaked at Mayor of London, and then soon as
and he ain't even peaked yet, mate. He'll be head of NATO. Where what jobs did you have when you left uni then? Did you just go straight to IT, or what was the
straight into IT? Moved down south actually. Moved to Surrey, so I was in Woking. Do you know it?
I know it. Well, how did you end up in Woking?
So this was my infinite wisdom. I got offered 3 jobs, and I think it was like Stockport, which is Cheshire, but near Oldham. And that was like, say, 17 grand. And then there was Oxford for 19 grand, or Surrey for 22 grand a year. And I thought to myself, 22 grand a year, that's amazing. Let's go and live in Surrey. And then it soon became apparent that everything is so much more expensive in the south. Yeah. Oh, it was a nightmare. So I remember my first few paychecks. Well, pretty much for the first year, what I was earning barely covered my rent.
Wow.
Because it was astronomical. But I loved it down there.
The thing about most comics is that we know really bizarre and dull facts, right?
Yeah.
And Woking was basically built as a cemetery. It's going to be the largest cemetery in Europe. And there's a train line called the Necropolis, and it just used to run to the cemetery and back. That was all it did. And you could pay depending on how much you had to sit at the front, the middle, or the back. And I think it's got like the first mosque in Britain. It's a really interesting place. Woking.
Yeah.
But you didn't last long there, then.
Yeah, I did actually. I was there 10 years.
Was you?
Bizarrely, yeah, I did everything. So my whole comedy career started in Woking. I was in this town centre one day. Now there was a small company, a small comedy promoter in Woking at the time called Terry the Stand Up. And what he did, do you know it?
I know of him. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, Terry Fromont, if he's watching. But yeah, I remember I was walking through the town centre, and he had a little stall, and he was like, "Anybody fancy being a comedian?" And usually, I used to live near the town centre, so I'd go home at lunch. For some reason that day, I had to go and buy a birthday present. And he was like, handed me a flyer saying, "Do you want to be a comedian? I'm running a little workshop, 6 o'clock tonight." And it was really bizarre because there was barely anyone on this workshop. There was just like 3 of us on it. And at the end of it, he told us he'd basically been on a course and then thought, you know what, I reckon I could teach this as well because the skills. Yeah. It was really interesting though. If you've never done any kind of comedy before, the way in which they were doing it that night was make a list of 10 things you really love and 10 things you hate.
Yeah.
And then you had to flip it and say why you hated the things you loved and why you loved the things you hated. And then it was all about getting an attitude towards the subject and like ramping it up so that, what do you like? Say a bottle of water. Why do you hate this bottle of water? Why does that make you angry? So it was a really quite interesting way into it. And then at the end they said, oh, we did Logan Murray, who does a course in London, and they said, we all did his course. We think we see something in you. So go on that course. So that's how it all started. But if it wasn't for that lunchtime, I don't think I ever would have got into comedy.
Wow. Do you know, the first time I gigged in Woking, I was on the bill. The opening act was a guy called Andy Zaltzman.
Yeah, news quiz now.
And then the next act was a guy called John Oliver.
Yeah.
Now has the Daily Show in America. Then me, and then Jimmy Carr closing.
Oh, wow.
And we got £10 each. And where are they now, eh?
Exactly, where are they?
Where are they now? What's going on? Where'd it go wrong for them and right for me?
Where are they now? Offending entire communities, if not racist.
There you go. So, okay, so you come out of uni, you get into IT, you go on the course, and where was your first gig?
First gig was the showcase for the course. So that was Covent Garden Walkabout, so central London. And it was...
I mean, why would you put on a gig at a Walkabout?
No, that it was with Hills Jago. I don't know if you've crossed paths with Hills Jago, but don't get me wrong, she can sell tickets. So it was downstairs in a Walkabout. There was about 100 people in, but they were mainly friends and family of the other people on the course. I thought to myself, there's no way I'm inviting anyone to anything I'm doing until I get to a point where I think actually I'll share this skill with people. But I remember Hills Jago has the brightest lights known to man. And even now, I must be over 1,000 gigs in, and I have never seen brighter lights than the lights on my first gig, where you couldn't even see the edge of the stage. That's how bright they were.
Mate, do you know, I wouldn't be doing comedy if it wasn't for Hills Jago.
Really?
Wouldn't be doing it, no. Never had the slightest inclination to do stand-up, ever. I always used to do a writing course on a Wednesday. I always used to do a course on a Wednesday. So I did like gardening and Egyptology and African rhythm and blues drumming. And then I just saw this writing comedy. I thought I was going to do writing radio for children, but there wasn't enough of us on it. So I'm like, okay, I'll do that then. And I went on this writing course. She was on the course. Said to me, you're quite funny. You should do some stand-up. I'm like, I ain't do stand-up. She goes, no, if you do stand-up, someone will buy your writing. I was like, really? So I thought I'd do a couple of gigs, and then I'm still here 20 years later.
Is that when it was? What year was it?
1999, I did my first gig.
Oh, nice. Where was your first gig?
Mine was at a place called the Purple Turtle in Islington. Islington then was still a little bit kind of rough-ish, but I was from around there, and there was a guy in the audience. I'll never forget him. He heckled everybody that went on, and I got the spot after the interval. And the comp said, right, here's Paddy Bramwell's his name was, a legend. He goes, here's your next act, John Ryan's first ever gig. So this guy said, well, you better be funny. I said, mate, there's two things I've never done in my life, stand-up comedy and stuck a microphone up someone's backside. In an hour, hopefully only one of them things I'll have achieved is your call. And he's like, oh, carry on.
Nice.
Yeah, that sort of set me up for my confrontational style, should I say. I've got a lot more mellower as I've got older, so really, but yeah. So you've done your first gig. Did it go well?
Yeah, the first gig was well. I enjoyed it, but then off the back of it, the other people that sent me on the course in the first place knew that I was finishing the course, so they said, "Oh, what you can do, you can come and do the open spots. So we'll give you 5 minutes." And they were so nice to me. It was Terry the stand-up, a guy called Mackenzie Taylor, who tragically died a few years after that.
He took his own life, didn't he?
Yeah, and then John Soph, who's back gigging in Manchester now. And yeah, they were so kind to me back then because they gave me stage time at all of the gigs and would let me go back like the month after and the month after that.
Or were you still living in Woking at the time?
Yeah, so I was always told, I grew up on the London open mic circuit with comedy, and they always said, what you'll do, you'll start on the open mic circuit, and you'll get to a point where you get good, and then you've got to go outside of London to get the paid stuff, and then when you get better than that, that's when London will come and get you back. London's never come asking for me back, so I'm still outside of London. I'll go if anyone's listening with a gig. I would go.
Were you still living in Woking then, though? Or did you move back up?
Yeah, so living in Woking, so it was £15 on the train every time I wanted to gig in London,
What?
and I reckon a good 30% of gigs got pulled, like at time of gig.
Wow.
So you'd give your night up, you'd travel into London, get there, there's like, oh yeah, there's no one in.
What year was this?
Pull it. So this would have been started very late 2008. So 2009, I was hitting every open mic in London. By 2010, I did well. I did well outside of London and I could drive as well, which hampered most of the London acts.
Yeah.
And the fact I was already outside of the M20, well, I was on the M25 pretty much in Woking.
There's people who built their careers on the fact that they can drive.
Yeah. I never really got into the car shares. I've done a few and I've really enjoyed them, but I'm almost like a lone wolf. It's me and a podcast.
What is that through choice or what is that?
I think so. I would. Maybe I should have done it more because I think when you're stuck in a car with other comics, because like I say, I've had a handful of car shares and I reckon I've got material from all of them, or I've managed to improve my set just due to being in close proximity with really good comics. And sometimes like comics, I say lesser comics in a nice way, but even just saying the words out loud and saying, I've got this idea. And then they might say, oh, maybe you could do this. And then all of a sudden it clicks. Just saying the idea out loud. Because usually it's just you and your pad and then the stage. And then you...
Yeah. No, I used to struggle with car shares because of the state of most cars that comics had. So there was a comic, Marcus Birdman. He had a Capri. He had a Capri, and I'm not going to a gig in a Capri. It's just not happening, mate. Then there's another comic, Mark Allen, I think his name was. He was a dog walker, so he came to pick me up, and I opened the door, smelt dog. I'm like, mate, I'm not getting in this car. You can come in my car. I'll drive. He went, no, it's okay. I went, no, I can't get in this car. Then he got in my car and made my car smell of dog. So,
no.
I wasn't too happy with that one. And then there's a couple of times I've had to slow the car down and say to the person, look, mate, I'm going to pull over and you're going to have to get out because you're so angry that you're making me like stressed, so I can't cope with it. So Ron Vaudry, Canadian guy, just wanted to kill everyone. I'm like, Ron, please, I've got to drop you off at the service station because you're stressing me out, mate. He's going, but I'm not having to go at you. I went, I know, but what's happening is you're getting stressed and my body's picking up on it, and now I'm getting stressed. And in a minute, someone's going to cut me up. We're going to get out and fight them because you need to calm down, bro. Let's get you coffee or a chocolate or something.
Yeah. I did one car. I remember doing one when I was in Surrey, and I had to drive into London, pick up Toju. Do you remember the militant black guy from Balls of Steel?
Oh, mate.
And a guy called Mickey Barge. And I swear, I introduced myself. I was like, "Oh, I'm Stevie. I'm gonna drive. I think I'm opening." It was a Freshers' Week at Keele University, but I swear, for the first 2 hours, they recreated the film. I think it was either Batman Begins or something.
Yeah.
And they just did all the voices and all the lines between them for 2 hours.
Yeah.
And it got halfway there. I was just like, will you shut up? Please.
And Toji does impressions as well, doesn't he? So he's doing the voices in the style of the person that was in the film.
Oh, for the first 3 minutes, it was amazing. I was like, oh, how good is car sharing? When people are this good at impressions.
No.
And then you just think, I could have put the DVD on.
I was in a car with a comic who got dumped by his girlfriend. And after 40 minutes of listening to him pleading with her, I had to take the phone off him and go, mate, she's not having you back, bruv. All right. Just hang up with him. I'm like, right. And then he's got to go and do a gig. I'm like, that was awkward.
How did the gig go? Did Dr. Stage come in?
Not too good at all. He just didn't. He couldn't snap out of it. Then one of the funniest ones though was Steve Day, who is
good friend, love him.
He was in the car with me and Adam Bloom, and I spent the whole journey just winding Adam Bloom up. And Adam Bloom will rise to anything. And when we got to the gig, I said to Steve, "Mate, sorry about that. I hope it wasn't, but I just found it highly entertaining." Steve, I turned my earphones off. After about 2 minutes, I couldn't hear anything.
Oh, Steve Day, I love him so much. I remember once I gigged with him, and he just obliterated the room. It was amazing, like standing ovation. It was that good.
Yeah.
And I sat in the green room with him, and I said, "Steve, just tell me, how can I get better at comedy? What is the one key thing to make me a better comedian?" And without skipping a beat, he went, "The key, always leave with a better coat hanger than what you came in with." And then took a different coat hanger and went, "This is the one I came in with, and this is the one I'm leaving with." And then just put his jacket on and went home.
Yeah, I started out with Steve, and he now does Gary Delaney's warm-ups. So always very, very interesting. So if at this stage I can just say a big thank you to our show sponsors, WJ, who are Britain's leading road marking and highway maintenance company. They're really good. They are very, very supportive of well-being and mental health, not just at work, but also in the community. I'm here with one of the best, certainly I'd say one of the best MCs in the country, Stevie Gray. But also, I think you're an all-rounder. I think you're one of those rare kind of comics who can do it all, mate. Open, close, headline, compare, put the chairs out.
Yeah,
fetch the tea.
I've
done gigs with you. You set up the equipment.
I do. Yeah. I did. That's one way I managed to get better gigs. It's a strange one. I'm not sure if it's just the Midlands thing, but there's quite a few promoters around here that have more than one gig on the same night.
Yeah.
So their regular MC can only really set up one room unless they're using house equipment. So Funhouse Comedy, Spiky Mike, has been wonderful to me. He put me in rooms MCing just when I was cutting my teeth, learning how to cut. Went back when I was basically splitting a 20-minute set over 3 sections.
Yeah, I remember them days.
But yeah, he's been really good to me. And it was a case of, I got the first compare gig I ever had was with a guy called Clyde West. Have you ever worked for Clyde? Oh, don't get.
Clyde is about 10 years older than me. He went to my school.
Did he?
Yeah. And everybody knew him even when I got there 10 years later. And I speak to him even now. He's a mate of mine, and he's a lunatic. He's a proper, not in the kind of sense of he's got some sort of disorder. He's just like Arthur Daly, Del Boy.
Yeah, I love him. I absolutely love him. He's
writing plays at the moment. He writes plays and short stories.
Yeah, I spoke to him the other week, actually. He's got a couple of gigs for me, but he always rings you up. He's like, "All right, Stevie, how you doing?" It's like, "Yeah, I'm good, Clyde. How are you?" He's like, "Got a gig for you." And at this time, it was like, it's 50 quid to MC or 400 quid if you provide your own PA system.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
So that was like, "How much is a PA system?" And he was like, "Probably pick one up for about 250, 300. I was like, "Oh, well, I'll just take the 400 quid and go and buy a PA system." So yeah, I did that, and that's where it all began, because I then did that gig and basically made an extra 50 quid off it. So I'd say I made £100, but then I had a PA system, and I had a really good one. So then it was a case of, I wonder if I could make the money back that I put out on the PA. And that for me was just phenomenal, because I have earned that PA back now 50-fold, easy.
Yeah, but that's the thing, you see. It's about, people don't realise, being a comic, it's not about being funny. That's just one small part of it. The rest of it is preparation, opportunity, being able to take the opportunity. So many times I've seen people just take a gig too early in their career or not see that opportunity of, like, I once got a call from someone said, "Look, can you come and do 3 15-minute spots at 5 o'clock in the morning under a railway arch in South London?" I'm like, "Are you being serious?" He went, "Trust me, if you do this, you'll never look back." I was fine. This guy's either like just really chancing his arm here. I said, we had a little chat. I said, "All right, then I'll go and do it." and I went along and did 3 15 minutes. First one was at 5 a.m. Then there was one at like 5:20 and 5:40, and I was out of there by 6 o'clock in the morning. But just all my work I get with any of the rail companies, I can trace back to that day because all the big
Really?
players were there. All of them were there. And I didn't get a penny.
Different crowds. Who was there? Who was there at that time of day?
They were lads that were coming off a night shift, started a day shift, and they wanted 15 minutes about men's health. No microphone, just under a railway arch. And yeah, I went and did it. And honestly, I've never looked back. And we're talking tens of thousands of pounds of work.
Wow.
Because he went, if you do it, mate, it will open doors. And it opened doors, all right. But that's the thing about seeing an opportunity and thinking, yeah, go on, I'll do it. I'll do it.
Yeah. That's amazing.
And it's the same mentality that you got, Steve. It's the same, right? Yeah, I need I'll get a PA. I'll get. Because like yourself, I play guitar, so I can headline with a guitar, without a guitar. I can host and go first and go second. So a guy called Ivor Dembina who runs Gigs in London, and when I used to host his open mic and new material night, he'd go out there, don't talk to the audience, just give me a minute, just go and do a minute of gags. And here's Jago would say, go out there and just get them to clap. That's it. Just come up with new ways to get them to clap or interact, but don't talk to them. And so you go, all right, then I'll see it as a challenge. And then before you know it, you're doing TV warm-ups or radio bits where they'll go, give us 45 seconds. You go, all right, do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you do much TV or radio?
Not anymore, but there was a time I did loads of warm-ups and that. I've never really gone down the TV route, but I always wanted to get a play on Radio 4. That's on my list. I've got a list on my wall of ambitions, and that's on there. Funny enough, Conservative Club Canvey Island wasn't on the
Yeah. Oh, so what else is on there?
Well, I've got things like I had Hackney Empire was on there, so I tick that. A pantomime, that I tick that. Army gigs, tick that. Afghanistan, tick that.
Nice.
Get paid to write a poem, tick that. Song, tick that. Just set myself these. I want to do 15 minutes in French. So
like Eddie Izzard.
Well, yeah, except I want to do it like to working class French people rather than English people who speak French who will go, oh, isn't he very clever? I want to be able to get down and dirty to it, mate. I like these challenges, man.
Yeah, so who were you in the I was going to say, who were you in the pantomime?
I was Idle Jack, right, in Panto. Now, this is great, you're interviewing me, but what the hell? I was Idle Jack. I was my mate Kev Orkian is brilliant, and he said he needed an understudy. I said, anytime I'll do it. And he went, all right, then come and do it. So I thought it's going to be a little panto in a small hall. And then when we got to the theatre, it was a 2,500 seater. And I watched 4 rehearsals. I had one go at it, and I did opening night. And then the family came, but I never told them. I never told them how big it was. So they came along thinking, I'd be like tree number 3 or something, or backing thing. And it was like the lead role.
Whoa.
And, it was. The missus was like, if you'd told me that before you did it, I would have said you've lost your mind, mate. But again, it's opportunity plus preparation. Yeah. And Dave Sleet, who's listening, has just made a absolute brilliant point there that the key is flexibility to engage, enjoy the possibilities to come from the unknown. That's me, mate.
Exactly, Dave.
Yeah, I'll go. I'll do that. I could do that. There was a program called Boys from the Black Stuff in the late 80s, early 90s. And the guy there called Yossa Hughes used to walk around going, I could do that. And it always stuck with me going, I could do that. I could. So in terms of work, do you work from home or do you work in an office?
I work from home. I'm allowed to work from home, but the office here is not too far from where I live. So I've decided I'm going to go in tomorrow. It was my first day last Monday, so I went in last Tuesday. And I found that I was one of the early adopters of working from home, like in IT. So I would do 2 days a week, like 6-7 years ago, I was doing this.
Yeah.
And that is when I'd be working in an office. And obviously, as soon as I get talking, that's my day gone. So then working from home, I found that I had fewer distractions. So I used to be able to get loads done working from home compared to working in an office. Whereas now I think it's the other way around, because offices aren't as full. And working from home, you get into a routine, and then there are distractions at home now, and things that back in the day you think, oh well, I'd never work and put the radio on or put the telly on in the background. But slowly they kind of creep into what you do. I'm going to get myself sacked from this new job now. But yeah, I found myself, I'll go into an office these days and I get more done in the office. So maybe there is a good balance to be had. And it is nice to actually speak to people. Speak to people sometimes in a non-comedy capacity. Because the majority of people I see are at the night time. So I still gig, say, three times a week. But I'll go out and I'll do the shows. But then you're always on. Because I always think with comedy, you can tone it down a bit, but you can't switch off and be a normal person whilst you're in the venue, because people expect of you. You are the comedian, and especially when you're the host or you're the promoter. But
But see, nice. You say, and I've noticed you say this a few times, I'm your host. You don't go, I'm your compere. I'm your host. And it's like we're very much in your front room. And it's that case of you make that room warm and inviting, like I imagine you are if I come around your house for dinner. Do you see then comedy as an extension of your personality, or is it something? Is it a coat you put it on and take it off?
I was thinking about this the other week, because it got to a point where I've always wanted to MC with no material. So just go on and just don't even do any jokes. Like what you were saying earlier about just get them clapping. But it was just, don't do any pre-prepared stuff. Just go out there and do like your 10 minutes without saying a single joke you've written. And recently it's got to that point where I have been doing it, and I've just been going out and I've been generating the laughs just by doing silly things like going into the audience or asking questions and just working off that. And it's pure room work.
Yeah.
But then I found myself, when I was doing that, it's like, where does the me in real life end and the comedian begin? Because now there's nothing that you've prepared, and there's no like, ta-da. It's just
yeah, I see that. Because I'm sort of pretty known for working a room, but the secret is though that you got a bucket of material, and then you like, so without spoiling the magic too much, one of the things I do is I'll ask a member of the audience what's a dog they've got, but I've got bits of material for about 20 breeds of dogs, and also generic stuff for dogs. So you go, I've got a Bouillon Frise, well I can come straight back at you. People go, wow, that is so quick, clever. It's not. It's preparation. Preparation.
Yeah.
Just want to do a quick couple of little shout outs to John Mason, who comes along every week. Thanks for joining us, John. Let us know what you've been up to. This guy decided to run a marathon on Christmas Day. It's just the things people do to get through the day. We've also got Martin Scott in St. Lucia, who's got to be 5 hours ahead of us. So it's got to be, what's that like? Quarter to 1 in the morning. Get to bed, Martin. What's the matter with you? It's interesting for me though that watching someone like yourself who's affable and personable, that's the kind of comedy I like. And I don't like when like Ricky Gervais. I remember working with him and just wanted to punch his face in. I just found it so in your face. Almost Kitson's a bit like it as well, where I just don't feel comfortable. I want to be. But then how do you then, as a performer, tailor what you're doing, knowing that there's people in that room got different expectations?
One thing I've found, and I've always found this, is the more likable you are, the more you can get away with. And there are nights when I've gone down some really deep, dark paths, and people are like, whoa, we didn't expect, it would be that dark. But almost because you say it with a smile, and because you've built up this connection with the audience, you can get away with a lot more. Whereas if Jimmy Carr comes out, he would straight off the bat open with that kind of material.
Yeah, something hostile.
Yeah, so it's but I find it, if you are affable, it's nice because people open up, and especially if you're the host or the compere, if people think they can talk to you, they will tell you things, and that is where the real comedy happens.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I see that. How did you cope during lockdown then, when there was no work?
It was tough actually, but luckily I had a different IT job which put me on furlough, which was basically lovely because it was like they also topped it up with the government funding. So I wasn't that shy off what I was. I could live off it actually. So it was. I don't know if people like discussing numbers, but say £2,000 a month to not work, I would bite your hand off and do that any day of the week. So it
In the
was.
north of England, you could buy a house,
Yeah,
mate. You could
exactly.
buy
I
several
did.
houses.
That is it. It's made of glass, but it's.
Well, if you're Woking, that'd just pay your train fare.
No, yeah, that it wouldn't. Yeah, I'd be on the street. My brother would have to come and rescue me if it was in Woking.
Tell us about Oldham then. What's the connection with Oldham? What's that all about?
So Oldham, that is my place of birth. So that is where I grew up. I went to primary school, as I said before, in North Manchester because my mum used to drop me off at my grandma and granddad's. But then secondary school was in Oldham, and I was a big Oldham Athletic Football Club fan.
Hang on, before we get to that, so you went to primary school in North Manchester, but then secondary school in Oldham.
Yeah.
Didn't they think you were dead posh?
Hey, it was the other way round. So Oldham, they kind of talk, a bit like that.
Yeah.
And North Manchester, even though it's like 4 miles down the road, they're a bit, like a bit Liam Gallagher-ish. So I went to secondary school talking a bit like this, and everyone's like, you talk really weird.
Something wrong with him, isn't there? We used to have some mates who lived in Durka.
Oh, yeah, Durka.
Yeah, and you literally, I've never known anywhere like it in my life. You go in the cakey bun shop, as we called it, to get your sandwich, and you're right. You must be staying up at Debbie's, aren't you? No, right. Hang on, there's some Cockneys in here. All right, Mark's mates from London, aren't you? They were like, yeah, up for a weekend. Yeah, you went to club last night, eh? Who was it you saw was there last night? And everybody knew everybody. It's just really bizarre, man.
It's lovely though, that friendliness between people. Not to diss the South, but
Mick Ferry and Rob Riley, they used to do a radio show in Oldham.
Yeah, I think they both still live there.
I went to do a radio show with them once, and it was in this secure compound. I've been to Afghanistan, mate, but this compound in Oldham, it was proper secure. It was like barbed wire, 9 feet high fences, it had floodlights on it, it had sensors. It was like, I said, how rough is it in here? They'll nick anything around here. Nick anything they will.
There's no place like home.
I went to university in Manchester. I loved it up there. Loved it. I sometimes regret, the fact that I never stayed up there. Although I wouldn't then have my lovely kids, so I can't argue with that. But I just find that people, the further north you go, the friendlier they get, and then I suppose at some stage you run out of country, don't you? Inverness must be the friendliest people in the world. So do you think then, growing up then, so you obviously speak very highly of your brother and your family, and sounds like you had a nice upbringing, you seem very level-headed, but how do you cope then when a gig goes bad, when a gig goes wrong, if they don't like you? Because it's not your jokes they don't like, it's you they don't like then, isn't it?
Yeah, I used to take it really badly. These days, it doesn't bother me as much because I can just look at the diary and see that I've got so many gigs coming up. And most of my gigs go well. I don't really rock the boat too much. I've got to try really hard to make people dislike the act. So, how do I cope with it? I think you've just got to get back on the horse.
But I suppose as well, at the end of the day, you've always got your PA, so
exactly. Dude, I could go out busking.
I could do anything with this PA. I'll do it all, mate. I'll do bingo. Do bingo calling.
I've done it. I did it. I did that during lockdown. As it happens, yeah, a few gigs came in, which were, do you want to be a bingo caller? But I remember, I don't even think it was legal at the time. They said, "Oh, we've booked a big outdoor space, but we just need a host. You just need to read the bingo numbers." I turned up, and it's like 500 people in Derbyshire in this massive field.
Brilliant.
And they were drunk. I mean, severely, because it was
Derby bingo. This is a film, mate. This is Channel 4 will pitch this.
Right. Seriously, we weren't even in game 2, and there was like pensioners like collapsed on the tables. It was it was absolute bedlam.
If you think back then to the times when something like that would make you feel really panicky, how have you overcome? How do you overcome nerves and anxiety and that sort of stuff?
I think I've learned to realize that one gig probably isn't gonna change your life. I know we spoke earlier about the railway arches, and then you've got a lot of work from that, and likewise with the PA, I got loads of work from that. But I used to have a almost mental image that this gig, the next gig, is the one that would propel you into stardom. And then the more and more you gig, the more you realize, no, it's not. It's a body of work over a prolonged period of time. That's what will get you places. So you've just got to take it on the chin, really, and just say, if something goes badly, just make sure you don't try and work out what went wrong. What was it that you can change, and then try and improve on it for next time.
But is that a guide for just problems in life in general? Like if you had to give a top tip for how to cope and survive with stuff.
I think so. I think if you can get to the bottom of something, if you can work out why this has happened and what the issue was and how you could have approached it better, that would be a good way. And I also think sometimes taking a step away from whatever the troubles are. So if you've got any kind of escapism, it's like you mentioned before, I think, was it John Mason who did the marathon?
Yeah.
Christmas.
Yeah.
Like maybe running. If you enjoy exercise, do that. Take your mind off what the issue is and come back to it. So yeah, I think
That's sound advice, man. I'm just trying to type that up as we speak. I'm going to add that to the bottom. That's a great, mate. That's a superb. It's that whole thing about taking your step back. I've got this big thing about Lionel Messi. I think obviously Ronaldo's a god, but Lionel Messi, if you ever watch him, sometimes he just puts his foot on the ball. When it's all running around at 200 miles an hour, Zidane used to do it as well. They just put their foot on the ball in the middle of chaos and just stop. Yeah. And that whole thing, that's like what you're saying, take a step back, try and find a way around it. And that, I think that to me seems to be something that's come through very much in the last sort of hour that we've been talking, that like you're in Woking, it's all very well, you're happy, but then you think, okay, what am I going to do next? You haven't like been led. It seems to me that you don't follow, you kind of stop and think about, like you said, you was working from home 7 years ago. It's about that, taking that step back, taking that minute, mate. That's exceptionally good advice. I like that. So we got coming up.
I forgot coming up. So I've started my own business with the comedy. So I am the resident MC of Flat Cap Comedy. We have venues all over the East Midlands. If you follow me on any of the social medias, I'm under Stevie Gray, and you will see all the tour dates there. But I also am still a resident MC for Funhouse Comedy, who have they have venues all over the Midlands. And it's just a case of keep going, keep gigging. And now that I'm getting much better at being the MC, I'm really enjoying it. It's got to a point where I'm enjoying it more than I ever have.
But how could you been gigging 13 years and you're enjoying it more now than?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's I'm playing a different game now, because now I've been up to Edinburgh and I reckon I've got easily 90 minutes to 2 hours of material, but I'm choosing not to use it, and then I've got it in my pocket. So if there is something. So yeah, Dave Sleet, there are no shortcuts to learning the craft. So yeah, you have to.
It's that thing, isn't it? It's that thing of people put these profound little comments in that you go, yeah. And that's the part of the problem, especially with comedy, but in life in general. Everyone wants it now. Everyone kind of goes, I want to be on telly today. But they don't realise that you've got to be ready. That preparation has to meet that opportunity. And that also... It's the little things, like you said, you've got your PA, but if you haven't got your PA that day, where would you be now? It's
exactly.
That thing of, I think Rachel seems to love your thing about, taking a step back, taking a bit of time out. Seems to be very much the thing to do. But Steve, mate, I could talk to you all night, mate. I don't see enough of you. But when I do, it's always a pleasure to be in your company, mate.
Likewise.
As you've shown again, pal.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much for having me on. I'd love to come back if you'd ever have me again.
Of course, mate. Of course. Take care, and mate, I'll I want you to leave your camera on though, so I can watch sunrise through. Really silly, but we'll speak real soon, mate. You take care. Yeah.
You take care. Lovely chatting.
Cheers, mate. All the best. That was Stevie Gray, just a really lovely guy, and I think that came across very much there. Very down to earth, very approachable, very affable, and some great, just a really good bit of sound advice there. Take a step back and find a way around the issue. We're all going to have problems in our life, but it's what you can do about it. And then when it does come on top, not everyone can do this. And Steve and I, neither of us are clinicians, practitioners, or able to give diagnosis on that. All we can do is go, look, this works for me. Maybe it would work for you. Other people have got different kind of techniques and different stuff that they do that works for them. Each week, as we know, our guests give us top tips for well-being, and it's not even that blatant. Sometimes it's just a subtle little thing. Dave Allison last week, I think it was, talking about don't fear medications. All too often people think, oh, I don't want to be medicated, liquid gosh. Sometimes you do need help that is practical, but we get loads of great advice. You know, James Dadswell, be persistent. You know, just keep going. Griff, bless him, get a dog. Griff, I'm not getting a dog, mate. Never happening. Never, not going to happen. Susie Bennett's advice was superb. Keep away from toxic people, because very often we'll avoid alcohol, drugs, and whatever, but it's toxic people. Jeff Schumann talks about keeping busy. Smugs was great. Just be active, help others, do stuff for other people. Different people got different kind of ways of doing it. Charmy and her say strong boundaries. There's always going to be setbacks, as Ben told us. It's just very interesting that we've all got different ways of dealing with things, different things that work. For me, as always, it's about reframing unhelpful thoughts. It's about being present in the moment. So at the moment, there's just me and Steve in the world because that's the person I'm talking to. Connecting with others, as we do here every Monday night. We're building a nice little community. Negative, toxic people. I can't tell you, that is my big thing. And I'm really privileged in my life because I just have a nice life. If I don't like something, I don't do it. If I don't like people, I keep away from them. Try not to procrastinate. That's a real big one, you know. And as Kane Brown said, don't see being selfish as being a negative thing. Loads and loads of really, really good sound advice. It's all there on the men's radio station.com website. But I'm going to tell you now, we're never taking Zoe Lyons. No, I'm not going cold water swimming. And Danny Posthill, I'm not doing freezing cold ice showers and ice baths. Sol Bernstein's message was very profound for me. Don't bottle it up. Life is not always easy. Don't fight it, but don't be scared to fight it. Every week we're here on a Monday night, and 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on mensradiostation.com. There is a show out there for you, something that you can listen to, something that maybe someone will have some advice or have an experience that is common to them and common to you. It's really important that we realize that we're not all alone in the battle of life. It's really important that you understand problems happen to more people than you would ever know. And, you know, people give on this air of they're all happy, they're all successful all the time. Not everyone is. And when you're not, you need to know that there's people there that you can reach out to that can help you. Don't be scared to ask for help. And don't be scared to ask a friend if they need help. Because one of the things you have to understand is that if you do have a problem, there are people out there that can help you. If you do get really stuck, have a look at the Mind website, mind.com, or Time for Change. But understand this. Like I said last week, the weather was hot. I was sweaty. I was burning. I didn't like it. Today, it was 9 degrees in Essex, and I loved it. I was sat out in my garden, in my T-shirt, drinking a cup of tea, and I just thought, it don't get better than this, does it? But that's the thing about life. It can and always will get better. We'll be back next Monday. Take care.
3, 2, 1.
Well, that's the end of another episode of Reading the Signs with me, Comedy John Ryan. We're here every Monday night at 7 p.m. talking with comedians about mental wellness, mental well-being, and just trying to get the conversation going. What we're trying to do is show that it's good to talk, and we're also trying to show that everybody can go through the same experiences. A massive thank you to the WJ Group who sponsored the show, showing their commitment not just to mental well-being, but also to reaching as broad an audience as possible. It's great to be part of the mensradiostation.com family, so do check us out on the website, on social media. We'll be back next Monday. You take care. Stay safe, everybody.